Today we'll be making a model for the NIFT Situation Test, and as you know, in NIFT Situation Test you are required to make certain kinds of models. Some of those models can be models of products, some of those models can be models of certain workplaces, and sometimes those models are models of certain tools for certain professional persons. So for this exercise we'll be making a utility tool for a milkman, and to start with we'll be making a layout sketch of the projected model. Okay, now we'll sketch the layout for the utility tool for the milkman. So I've thought of making something which is like a big cart or a drum in which the milkman can store his bottles or his pouches of milk. It will have wheels, and it will also have some sort of shade to protect him from the elements, usually from the sun and the rain, right? So I've thought of something which looks vaguely something like this. So this is the layout, and you should try to keep your layout as neat as possible, but again this is not the essential stuff. You'll be marked on your model, so you don't need to worry too much about making your layout too clean or too detailed. So it will be like a drum which will be fitted on a platform like this, and there will be a couple of wheels, and on top there will be a shade. So I've thought of this layout or this model keeping also in mind the materials which we have been given, right? For example, this will be made of straw, right? This will be made of cartridge plus the glaze paper for decoration, right? Some decoration we can put, and this will be made out of the mount board. Obviously you have to use the mount board always in the base, or always where you want the most structural integrity, because it is also one of the strongest materials that you have. The wheels will make out of a combination of mount board, cartridge, and also the pastel sheets, right? If we are to break this down into its constituent parts, we would have first of all the main part, which is a cylinder, and you've already learned how to make a cylinder, right, in a basic geometrical objects exercise. But the difference here is that we'll be putting those crowns only on one side, because this cylinder needs to be open from one side, right? This crown side will be pasted on the base, right? So this will actually be the bottom, right, and this will be the top. And it needs, we don't need to make a separate base for this cylinder, because this will be pasted on the mount board, and this will be made of straws which will be bent, 2 straws which will be bent, and they will be stuck inside the mount board. We'll make holes and then we'll stick them inside the mount board. And the wheels are, again, we learn how to make wheels in the basic geometrical stuff, or basically they are very flattened cylinders in a way. So we'll need a long strip like this with crowns on both sides, right? So we'll need 2 of this for the both wheels, and then we'll need 2 circles, because this will be attached in this sort of a ring. And on top of both sides of the ring we'll stick a circle or a disc, right? So these are circles or discs, One we'll make from mount board, which to give it some strength and some structural integrity, and the other side we'll make from pastel sheets, so that we can sort of make a hole easily. It's hard to make a hole in mount board. It's not impossible, but it's hard. So we'll use the pastel sheet side to make the hole to stick the axle here, the wheels axles here. And now because this platform is only 2 wheels, it might become unbalanced. So we'll need to put something like some stabilizer here. So this will be made from a piece of pastel sheet and this sort of a V-shaped structure. So this will be easy. We'll just fold paper and then we'll bend it to make this sort of a V-shaped structure to stabilize the platform. Okay, now I've cut out the shape for the cylinder. As you can see, it has crowns only on one side. This is the side we'll attach to the mount board pedestal base. But before sticking it and making into a cylinder, it's much easier if we have attach any decorations, any glaze paper that we want to attach to it before make it into that cylinder shape, right? It's easier to stick any sort of decoration on a flat piece than on a rounded piece. So I've thought of making some sort of a splash pattern, right? Something to keeping in theme with the of milk. So I've taken this piece of glaze paper and I've made sure it's around the same length as the cylinder I want. This part that is left will be stuck inside the cylinder, right? So I'm going to make some sort of a splash pattern here. Now I'm going to be cutting this. Then we are going to be sticking it onto this piece of paper, right? Make sure your edges are clean, right? Make sure that you don't use too much glue, because the more glue you use, the longer your model will take to dry. And if it stays wet for too much time, it can sort of become unstuck while you are attaching it to the other parts of your model. Even this glue is a little bit much, but make sure you spread it if you accidentally put too much glue, so that it doesn't clump in one place. So I have something like a splash pattern of milk maybe, and I've made some sort of droplets beforehand which I'll attach to sort of and I've also cut out some letters. Okay, now I've stuck the smaller decorations I made along with the larger piece of glazed paper, and now I've scored these crowns using the back side of a cutter so that they'll bend easily. Make sure you don't score this part, otherwise it won't make a proper rounded surface. Now let's apply the glue here. I've applied the glue, but before sticking it you should make sure that you sort of curve the paper a little beforehand so that you don't have to work too hard to make the sort of rounded surface of the cylinder. Make sure you hold it in place for a few seconds. And then make sure by turning it over that the base is a proper circular shape, right? To make the wheel, we'll need to make a long strip like this with crowns on both sides, and we'll also need 2 discs of the same size. You can use both mount board if you want, or you can use both pastel sheets. I've made one of mount board and one of pastel sheets. And now we'll score the crowns so that we can bend them. Now stick this part without the crown to the other side of the strip, without the crown to the other side of the strip. Now once you've made the ring, you have to stick it. First one disc, and then you have to stick the other disc here. Now once you've made the ring, you have to stick it. First one disc, and then you have to stick the other disc here. So this is the wheel which we have made, right? We have stuck the strip to both circles, and I've made a hole on the pastel side of the wheel through which we'll be putting the axle of the wheels, right? And to make the axle of the wheel, I've taken these 2 pieces of straw. Actually, I've cut one long piece of straw in half, and now I'm gonna be putting this one piece inside the other to sort of strengthen the straw. Now measure the axle of the wheels according to the base you want. I've made already cut out this base from mount board according to the size of the cylinder we have. So I'm going to be sticking on like this. So I don't want the wheels to stick out too much. So I'll sort of just measure it by eye, and then I'll cut it here. So after cutting this axle, I'll stick it to the underside of the base. I want this pink side to show up here, right? And I'll stick this using this piece of paper. This is just a piece of cartridge paper which I've folded, and I'm going to stick it using this piece of paper like this. So the axle is stuck now. You can use more strips if you want. You can use extra strips if you want it to be more stronger, right? And then I'll stick the wheel using some glue. I'll stick one wheel here, and I'll stick the other wheel this side. So now we can take the wheel and we can stick it here. Now the straw might not stick to the pastel sheet right away. So what we do is we'll put some glue here on the straw. Whenever you have some surface that is a little shiny or glossy, on which does not stick right away to other surfaces, the trick we do is we apply some glue and then let it harden to something like a chewing gum consistency, so that when we stick it, it becomes a little more stronger. It has a stronger bond, and that's when we'll stick it. And then we'll stick 2 wheels to both sides, and then we'll be sticking this here, and then we'll make some holes, and then we'll be put the set for the Milkman. So now you can see that I've taken the base and I've stuck the axle and I've stuck both wheels onto the base, and I've also stuck this sort of a V shape to sort of stabilize the base, because otherwise with only 2 wheels it wouldn't be so stable. So to make the V, I've just taken a piece of paper, a black piece of pastel sheet, and then I folded it in half, and then I made this sort of a V shape, and then I've stuck it using glue like this. Now I've made the sort of the main base of the model, which is the utility tool. Now I need to sort of make the 2 things more. One is the cover for this can, and then I need to put in the support for the sort of the shade, the sun shade. So I've made 2 holes here using this compass, and through these 2 holes we'll stick this 2 pieces of straw. I bend this 2 pieces of straw also, so that when I stick this piece of shade which I've cut out, so that it bends down like this, right? Now I'll stick the straw into this base. Now as you can see, I've put the straws in through the holes. If it's hard to get the straws in, you can again use a compass to push the straws through, and then make sure the fold sort of lines up in both the straws. And then I'll stick this piece of paper, cartridge paper. Again, you can decorate it if you want using glazed paper, but right now I'm keeping it simple. So I'll be sticking this using this paper strips that I've cut out earlier. To make sure that the straws stick to the shade properly, hold it for a few seconds, right? And then it will bend down like this. So just to make it firmer, you can just stick another strip of paper, which we'll be doing. And stick the other strip also. So the more strips you use, the stronger your bond will be between the straw and this piece of shade. But you should also remember that if you use too many strips, this could become too heavy for the straw to support. You might have to re-stick parts of the strip again, right? So as you can see, I've attached the shade to the straws here, so it's sort of bent like this, right? And before making the covering for this, I'll need to put some sort of a handle, which I showed in the layout, right? And for that, I've taken this piece of glazed paper tube, right, which I made by rolling a piece of glazed paper like this and then sticking it. So I'll bend this glazed paper tube along this 4 points, and then I'll be sticking it like this, so that when it's upright, right, the Milkman can sort of use his handle to drag the tool around. Now as you can see, I've stuck the handle here, right? And now that this is done, we'll make the cover for this can, right? And to make the cover, first we'll need a long strip like this. I've already cut out the strip, but again we'll need a strip with crowns on one side. So what will happen is, we'll make a ring like this with crowns on one side, and then we'll put some sort of a base over it, and then this will go over the milk can like this. And you have to make sure that your strip is slightly larger than the circumference of this cylinder. So you can measure it using a piece of paper. You don't need to use any mats, right? So you can use a piece of paper to measure how big this strip should be, and then after that you can cut it out. Okay, as you can see, now I've taken the strip and stuck it to a piece of paper and then cut it out to make this sort of a lid, and then I've decorated it using this thin blue strip of paper, and now we can put it over this, right? So it becomes a lid. So we can add some finishing touches to it. For example, I'm gonna put this piece of glazed paper that I cut out, because sometimes you'll make some mistakes and your model might become a little dirty, as mine has become here. So we can hide that using some decorative touches, right? And I'm going to put a handle on the lid so that the milkman can sort of lift out the lid, right? So this is the lid, and I'm going to put this sort of a handle I made from black pastel shade onto it, and that will be the finishing touch for this model. Right, so this becomes a handle, and this is our complete model, right? So you can see from various angles, right? This is how it looks from the back. Okay, so this is how your complete model will look like. Examine your model from various angles to make sure that nothing is falling apart.
By far, we have discussed about different types of questions asked in NIFT Situation Test, but for learning more, you need to practice more, and for practicing more, buy NIFT Situation Test Practice Booklet designed by AFA from Amazon or www.afaindia.com.